And I think it's actually really important to look fear in the face, because if we keep shutting it down and telling it where to go, it's going to keep coming up. So when we look at like whatever that fear is that's coming up and we're like, why do I have this? What's going on? You process it. Is this true? No, it's probably not true. And then you can work through it so much easier. But, I just think it goes along with the lines of not just shoving down our emotions.
Welcome to your Journey to Joy podcast. I'm your host, Moyra Gorski, and I'm on a mission to help you find joy in the chaos of life. As a retired nurse, multi-passionate entrepreneur, and mom of 4 adult children, I know what it's like to feel the overwhelm of it all and wonder if and when the joy will show up again. And I've learned it's up to us to go find that joy. On this show, you will hear inspiring stories from those who have overcome all kinds of life challenges, tips on how to stay healthy and vibrant during the ups and downs of life, and simple ways on finding joy in your own life. Let's face it, life is messy, yet when we travel together on this journey, support and encourage each other along the way, that joy starts to show up again. I'm so excited to lead you on this journey of you to find the joyful life that you deserve. Well, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am your host, Moyra Gorski, and so thrilled you are here. And I got to tell you, this is a thrill for me to bring my guest to you today. If you've been watching or listening and following my journey, you know that I was diagnosed with breast cancer in October. And I am a lifelong learner. So I dove myself into learning and figuring things out. I keep using that word, figuring things out. And I realized that there's so much that I can learn and people that I can meet and books that I can read and things like that. And I stumbled across, I think I found Jen's podcast first, and then of course, Instagram, and, went through all of that. And I've been listening, and I reached out to her and I asked her if she would come on and be a guest for me, because her journey seems so similar. Well, parts of her journey seem so similar to mine in that she is going through this cancer journey and she wants to help people live their best life and find a way to thrive through cancer. And so before I just keep going on and on, I want to introduce, and I forgot to ask you how to pronounce your last name, because I don't want to ruin it there. Jen is here today. So you introduce yourself and pronounce your name. Yeah.
I will. That's so funny, because I do the same thing on my podcast when I'm interviewing somebody. I'm like, dang it, I'm not sure if I'm going to say their last name right. It's Delvaux. I'm Jen Delvaux. Yes, I went through a diagnosis in 2021 is when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. But honestly, my journey starts with cancer before that. So in 2009, my husband was diagnosed with brain cancer. And so that's really where cancer came into our lives. It was, he was 37 when he was diagnosed, and our world just kind of turned upside down. We had 2 young kids. It wasn't in our lives, so we didn't know what to do. And, he immediately had a brain surgery, and the beautiful thing about him is he just has this incredible attitude, like incredible. And then it came back again in 2011. And at that point, it was way more aggressive. And we were really worried at one point that we were going to lose him. Like, he went through a lot after that second brain surgery. And we did all of his surgeries, or the last 2 at MD Anderson in Houston, just because he needed to have an awake, extensive brain surgery. And then in 2019 was his last brain surgery. But he's doing really well. And he has a fantastic attitude, and he's taught me so much and almost prepared me for my own diagnosis in 2021, which was still, I'm going to tell you, super shocking, because when I got that call back, I don't know if this happened to you, but I went for my routine mammogram and I got that lovely phone call, and she said, "Hey, we need you to come back. We're seeing something." And I thought, no big deal. Like, this happens all the time, right?
Right.
And she says, "Do you want to know which breast it is?" And I was like, "Sure." And in my head, I knew she was going to say left. I kept saying, "It's left. It's your left." She's going to say that you're left. And she said, "You're left." And I thought, well, that's weird. But I just kind of let that go. And I didn't feel anything. There was no lump. I didn't notice anything. And so I went back for this repeat mammogram. And the way they do it here is you go for that repeat mammogram. If they still see it, then you go in for the ultrasound. And if they still see it, then you see the doctor. So
Mhm.
you're hoping you never get to that point of to seeing the doctor. And so I did the repeat mammogram. She saw it. She said, okay, let's go into the ultrasound room. And I think when I was laying there, I was like, this isn't good. Because she was just staying in a one area for a really long time and just it was just very extensive. And she was under my arm for a very long time. And then she said, I'll be right back with the doctor. And I was like, oh,
I know.
my heart sank.
Well,
And
it's the
I was like,
same, so similar because same thing, did the same
yeah,
thing. I went in, I turned 60 in September. And so it's like, I better go see the doctor. And again, strangely enough, that's not the right thing, but like I'd had two biopsies previously, 2 years ago, and then one in 2016. And I didn't even, and they were all in the same, in the left side. I didn't even, I don't know, I guess I didn't think much about that because I didn't think that anything would happen. Right. And so,
right.
so I'm laying, so same thing, mammogram, go into the ultrasound room. And I don't know about you, but like I was sitting there and like I have to sit here in the, well, people can't see us, but like I'm laying down with my left side against the wall. That's what she said I had to be. And the ultrasound gal was on my right. And then there was the screen. And so I'm sitting there like with my eyes closed, just trying to breathe and be. And then I was like, I'm going to look. And so I look and I can see the screen and I can see the ultrasound thing. And she's coming to this point and she's coming to this point. And she, I'm a nurse, so I know kind of a little how. So
Oh,
she's measuring. And I go, so there it is, huh? She goes, yeah. And so same thing, like she left to go get the doctor. And I intuitively knew inside of me that before a biopsy, I knew it was cancer. She came
wow.
in and she goes, I want to recommend you to a breast surgeon and we're going to do a biopsy. And I just intuitively, I didn't want to believe it, but I intuitively knew. I'm like, it is. And like, what the heck? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when my doctor walked in, he was like walked in with the saddest face, and I was like, no. And I still, honestly, though, I was like thinking, there's no way, there's no way, there's no way husband and wife can both have cancer. There's no way.
Mm-hmm.
That's what kept going through my mind. Like, this has got to be wrong. And weirdly, my neighbor, this is so wild. I was literally about to throw a party like in a few days for my neighbor who just finished radiation treatments after breast cancer. My neighbor.
Mm.
So I called her and she said, well, the good news is they didn't call you back immediately for a biopsy. I was like, true, true, true. So when I got home, I was telling my son and Drew, and I was okay because I still was kind of thinking there's no way. And then I got the phone call and they were like, the doctor looked at it more and we are pretty sure this is cancer and you need to come back ASAP for a biopsy. So can you come back 7 a.m. tomorrow? I was like, oh my God. So then I knew and I just knew and I cried and cried and cried and cried. And
Mm-hmm.
then until I had no more tears with my husband. And my son would kept coming in and out of the room, but we're just open. We've been open our whole, ever since Darren's diagnosis, we're just open
Mm-hmm.
and honest about things. So yeah, that's my story of my diagnosis.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that again, you guys need to check out their podcast because the two of them are on there together and they are it's a great combo. You guys do a great job
Thank
on it. I love
you.
listening to it. You're welcome. I mean, you said like, that doesn't make sense, right? Husband and wife, but also like you, from what I see, I mean, you have a history in being in fitness, right? And
Hmm,
being in
hmm.
wellness and helping people. So I'm kind of the same. For 26 years, I've been a brand ambassador for our wellness line and I've, lived a healthy lifestyle and built a big team and all of those wonderful things. So even when I told some people, they're like, you do everything right. So I'm like, well, not exactly, but like, that's what I was like, there's no way. There's no
Yeah.
way. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and, that's what so quickly realized again is that we don't have control over everything
We
in our
don't.
lives.
We don't.
And sometimes things happen for us instead of to us. And I've heard people
I
say that so
agree.
much, and I can like, well, but it's so true because this has just happened in October, and I feel like I am becoming a totally different person
It's
in a really good
insane.
way.
Yeah, it's insane how much I've changed in the last, it'll be 3 years, February 22nd, 222 is when I was
Mm,
diagnosed, 222, 21. And but it was life changing for me for sure. And I didn't know it right away. You know, it's interesting. My husband has such a great attitude. And I was like, not okay in the beginning. Like I was mad. I went through all the emotions, but I quickly got over it. I've always been that way because of being, I think, in the wellness industry as well. You just know how to pick yourself back up and you're like, all
hmm
right, here's what I need to do. But yeah, it was life changing for sure. And a lot of things have changed and it's evolved over the years. Like I keep kind of figuring out new things,
hmm
but yeah, it's life changing. And some people who are maybe newly diagnosed listening, they might be like, "Ugh, hate that term. You know, it happens for us. Like I
hmm
get it. But I think when you think about it that way, it empowers you. And
hmm
that's where people who they don't want to look back and say, because obviously we can't blame ourselves. We can't,
hmm
right? Nobody really knows why this happened.
hmm
But when you take a look back and you go, what was happening over the last 5 or 10 years? You know, it's not like a tumor grows, you know, in the last 6 months. It's usually longer periods. And you just have to look at your life. Was there more stress? Stress is a huge reason, huge,
hmm
especially left-sided breast cancer. There's a lot to do with caretakers. I don't know if you know that.
I
Us
do
being
know that.
caretakers.
Yes.
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 Because mine was left and I know hers was left. So I had that question all the time. People would say to me, well, I don't understand. Like, you're healthy and fit. Like, what's the point? There's so much more to it being healthy and being in shape and taking care of yourself. Like, it prepared me for this. Like, I
Right.
feel like I was able to get through this so much better with the knowledge I have. Like, a lot of people start from square one, and it's hard because there's a lot of things that really should be looked at after diagnosis and
Right.
changed.
Right. I completely agree. And yeah, everything that you said. But that's what I heard. I don't know. I heard somebody say something like we're our own shamans. Like we know what's going on inside of ourselves and our brains and our lives. And that's what you're saying is I believe we should, if this happens to you, you should challenge yourself to think, to just slow down and say, okay, what is going on
Yeah.
in my life or what has, I mean, I've heard it many times that when women are diagnosed, you know, the doctor will say, what happened, or a functional medicine doctor, or someone may say, what happened to you in the last 8 months, 18 months or whatever? Has there been any major stressor back there? And it's important to be aware of that because stress causes huge problems, issues in our bodies. And for again, people that have been following me, and if you haven't followed that long, I had a very long period of time where our daughter was struggling with an eating disorder and some mental health challenges and in and out of treatment. And that period of time, which was 5, 7 years of a lot of stress. And I remember during that time that many of my friends were like, you got to go take care of yourself because I was starting to go down. Like I'm the one that, right, takes care of everybody, right? I'm a nurse. I have 4 children. I started a business from nothing and I was thriving. And then I have a daughter with, and plus, busy life, hockey boys and like all of this. So good stress, bad, like stress. And so I started to learn there about putting your oxygen mask on first and taking care of ourselves and being the leader of our own life and stop being martyrs. And so I learned a lot of that. But it's also, I know that and I've also been married for 30 years, and that's been great. And it's also been a big old up and down, right? So there's all of that we need to pay attention to. And like, I do believe I learned, but just like you said, everything that I've learned has brought me up to today. And I know as I'm facing this challenge, I don't feel like I did before. I remember
Yeah.
those days and how difficult it was and the pain in my stomach and like from all of that stress. I don't feel that same way. So I know that
Hmm.
God, the universe, whatever you choose to believe in, prepares us for what we're going to face today. Um, and and one of the best books that I found that really spoke to me was that Metabolic Approaches to Cancer. And when it
Mm-hmm.
talks about the different terrains that we have, being
Mm-hmm.
stress, hormones, microbiome, sleep, and all of those things, and
Yeah.
how, you know, and, as we do in wellness, we talk about it's not necessarily this pain, it's like what's causing the pain. And so
Yeah.
that's what I'd love to hear your thoughts on is that, you know, let's look at the stress, let's look at our sleep, let's look at, the environment and things like that and get, is that out of balance? And if so, how can we get that into balance so that it
Yeah.
doesn't create a tumor, that type of thing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know that one thing I think when people are newly diagnosed is it's important to go because there's usually so many things we can do that it can be so overwhelming and you can't necessarily go back and go, God, what did I do wrong? I mean, it's good to look at it, like I
Mhm.
said, but it's like, where can you make the changes? But I think like the most important thing is just to sit with it for a little bit and process it and let all of your emotions come out. You can have all of them. You can be angry, you can be mad, you can be sad, you can be why me, like let it all out. And it's normal to feel that way. And I think sometimes as women, we try to be, because we are the caretakers, we have to do all the things. And we don't want anybody to look at us like we're sick or that we need help because that we're the person that helps the sick people. And
Mhm.
so it's this weird thing that we're in, but we have to overcome that and we have to let all the emotions out. So one thing I learned was letting all the emotions out because I'm usually the type of person where I'm good. I got this. I'm good. Nope. I
Mhm.
don't need any help. I'm good. Like it's funny, even my neighbors, when they found out about me, they're like, we'll bring food, we'll do this. I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm fine. I'm fine. Like I just would push all that away. But I really recommend like process it, slow down, take some time. I think we react out of fear. I'm
Mhm.
guilty of this. I immediately went into my doctors and was like, take my breaths, do whatever you need. I want to be here. Like, but that was panic. That wasn't like
Mhm.
rational thinking. Like, I really think we react out of fear and we can move a little bit slower. We have time. 9 times out of 10, this isn't emergency
Mhm.
situation where you have to act immediately. You should be getting second and third opinions and making sure your team is like the best of the best, whatever your plan is.
Mhm.
It's your journey, it's your diagnosis. You can take it in whatever direction you want. It's got to be what you feel comfortable with.
Mhm. Well, and yes, we do need to, unless it's inflammatory and very like
Right.
aggressive and all of that,
Right.
we do have time. And even my first breast surgeon that I went to see, she did, as she was trying to push me into scheduling a date for surgery, she did also say that I had time to think
Yeah.
about it. And that is, I think, one of the very most important things, as well as sitting in it, is knowing that we do have time. And so you don't have to necessarily rush into doing something that you really are unsure of.
Yeah.
And, we live outside of Chicago.
Hmm.
And are you in,
I'm
um,
in Michigan,
oh, yeah, that's right.
Grand
And
Rapids.
I went to school at Hope College. I guess I didn't realize you were in Michigan,
Yeah.
but I mean, you have great medical care in that area. We have
Amazing.
great medical care here. And same thing. I got a second opinion and was so pleased with her. And so I went with her. But we should be getting second and really understand it and ask them questions and take your little notebook. Like this is my little cancer notebook, that I took with me to all my appointments so that you can write down those questions and also take somebody with you, your
A
husband, your friend,
thousand
your,
percent.
somebody so that they can hear it and maybe
Yeah.
help kind of hear it from a different angle or whatever
And I
too.
even recommend third opinions sometime
Hmm.
because sometimes you're still not sure. And when you have two doctors who are saying, one saying, oh, you could do this, and one saying you could do that. And you're like, well, wait, what am I supposed to do? And that third opinion might be helpful into like really figuring out. So definitely ask around. The whole team, they all of a sudden they get you with a whole team. And I was like, wait a minute. All right. this is not, and it's weird when it happens to me over Darren, because with Darren, like I feel like I could perform brain surgery. Like I knew it all. I was like the doctors were so impressed. Like I knew everything. Like I do know everything about him and all the need, all his needs, everything. And when it came to me, I was like, I felt like just for a minute, again, it took me a minute, just like a shell of myself. Like, who am I? And then all of a sudden, like I came to and I was like, what am I doing? Just going with these doctors that they told me to go to. Like, no, I need to power through this and figure out the best of the best of the best. And I started like doing my research then. So yeah, it takes researching. And I don't think you need to know it all in the beginning. I think knowledge is power, but sometimes too much of potential symptoms or side effects can bring on more fear, unnecessary fear. I think our minds are so powerful and you need to protect your minds as much as possible. So like, the treatment that I did do, I didn't look at the potential negative side effects. And I don't really look at if I don't do something, what's my, just because I feel like actually I interviewed somebody who she has like anxiety and stress, and she does not know her diagnosis to this day. Her husband does. She has no idea. And she went through the treatments and did whatever she needed to do, but she did not want to know because she knew that would bring on more fear.
Hmm.
Our minds are powerful.
Yeah. Well, and I can understand that because I didn't want to say the C word and people are like, well, but you have to like embrace it, like you have it. I'm like, I know, but I don't want to say cancer because then it's cancer and then it's cancer and then I don't want to have cancer, right? I struggled with that too. Like, should I say that I have cancer or that I have a health hiccup? Right. I was saying that was facing a health hiccup versus cancer. And then I was like, okay, I got breast cancer. I have a tumor, and then now I'm cancer free. So,
Right.
but it is, our minds are
I think that's
powerful.
I think that's why I put not today in front of it.
Right. Yeah. So that's the name of their podcast is Not Today Cancer. And I kind
Yes.
of said the same thing in the beginning. I was like, cancer's going to mess with me? Like, really?
Yeah.
Like try me. Right.
Yeah, yeah, right.
So,
Exactly.
brought to you by Gorski Wellness and the possibility of a better you. Are you feeling sluggish? Ready for a change? Need more energy? Up for a bigger challenge? I'm Moyra Gorski, retired nurse and wellness advocate. For over 22 years, I've been helping people live healthier lives while making small changes each and every day. Those small changes lead my clients to living a healthier lifestyle with markedly better health. As a brand ambassador for the Shaklee Corporation, the most clinically proven wellness company in the world, I guide my clients to make healthier choices each day with their food, supplements, skincare, workouts, and mindset. They say getting started is half the battle. Let's make healthy happen together. If you're ready for simple, natural, sustainable solutions to feeling and looking your best, let's connect. You'll find a link in the show notes or reach out to me at moyragorski.com. Here's to a better you. So we talked about, again, the sitting in the emotions and getting lots of opinions.
Yes.
Again, there's so much we can talk about, but I think and if we haven't said this already, like everybody's cancer journey is different. There's 30 different types of breast cancer. So know that your diagnosis is your diagnosis and your treatment and what you choose to do is what you choose to do. And you should stand strong in that and feel okay.
100%.
But I did start to get a little overwhelmed because I got all these books over there now that I ordered on Amazon and like started reading and I was like, and I've again been in wellness and talked about supplements and sleep and diet and stuff. So I started to dive into that. I just got so like, oh my God, like, am I supposed to be keto? Am I supposed to be plant-based? Am I supposed to, drink water or do coffee enemas or like, it's kind of like
It's a lot.
overwhelming. It's a lot. So I'd love for you to, kind of give your feedback on, I don't know. And I
What
don't
I
know if
did.
there's what you did and if there
Yeah.
are 5 things or whatever, but kind of what you did in that realm, aside from lobectomy, radiation, chemo, those kind of things. Like what else, what did you do to kind of start to
Yeah.
clean up that?
I I knew I was going to need the extra support. I'm not like my husband. I don't have that his attitude, and I knew that I needed to take control. I wanted to be in the driver's seat of my diagnosis, not the doctors. Not that the doctors are great, like we need them, but I wanted to be in the driver's seat taking care of myself as well. So the first thing I did, to be honest, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I went into energy healing and I went into acupuncture and dove deep into meditation. So the first thing I really wanted to do after letting all my emotions out was I wanted to figure out how to have some peace and calm within and to get my body back into that parasympathetic state because it was in a state of panic.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not used to that. But I will tell you this, I've never in my whole life felt as calm as I do now. Not all the time, but I can bring myself into this state of feeling good so quickly. And I never knew I could do it before. I'm like that type A personality where I'm like, go, 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 like walk. No, let's not. Why would I walk when I can run? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like that
Right.
mentality where I'm just like, and now I've slowed down and I spend time every single day meditating. I get outside and I walk. I think one of the most beautiful things is from a diagnosis is we look at the world differently. We look at the sky differently. We see the sun, we see the clouds, the trees, the greenery, the snow. It's snowing out here right now. But it's like we have a whole new vision in front of us, which is a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful thing. So I really think it's important for you to figure out tools that you have in your back pocket that when the fear does arise, you have some things that you can do to calm yourself back down. And that might be a couple breath work session, like
Mm-hmm.
going and sitting for a couple minutes and just doing a box breathing, which is just breathing in for 4, holding at the top for 4, releasing for 4, and then holding. Just something so simple like that can bring you back down to that parasympathetic state because after diagnosis, there's just more fear in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not good.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I want to say about fear is interestingly enough, I don't know if you know this, but I did write a book. And in that book, I wrote it in my first year after I think it was actually on my 1 year anniversary, maybe my second year that it was available. But in that book, I guess I could go back and change it, but I tell people to shut that voice down, name it, the fear talking.
Mm-hmm.
And I've changed my tune on that. And I think it's actually really important to look fear in the face because if we keep shutting it down and telling it where to go, it's going to keep coming up. So when we look at like whatever that fear is that's coming up and we're like, why do I have this?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? You process it. Is this true? No, it's probably not true. And then you can work through it so much easier. But, I just think it goes along with the lines of not just shoving down our emotions. So I did that. The second thing I did after I got tools to feel calm is I really looked into my nutrition and my exercise. And like I said, I've always been into fitness, but I've changed it. I do things differently now. I think more of like, oh, okay, I need today to move my lymphatic system. So I'll be on the rebounder. I'll get outside and walk so much more. I hike. Like walking is like with me every day now. And I can't believe for years I didn't do this because it's just so good for you. But I lift, but I also don't do too much because what we want is we want our bodies not to be inflamed
Mm-hmm.
constantly. And when you're lifting, that inflames your body. So you want to give your days when you are lifting, which is important because of, we want to protect our bones, especially after diagnosis. I just give myself some breaks in between. And then as far as my diet, I was like, okay, what did my diet look like before? My diet looked before was basically like ketogenic, a lot of meat, like the same vegetable probably every day.
Mm-hmm.
And God forbid fruit, because fruit has sugar. No way, no whole grains, no bread, no nothing. Like it was ridiculous. Like my diet was definitely for the skinny jeans, not for longevity. I was like protein bars, protein shakes, like just getting in protein and not literally looking at the food. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and now I look at everything. And now what I put into my body, I did go mostly plant-based, and not that you have to go this extreme, but I went mostly plant-based and I love it. And I do not do fake meats. So I think fake chicken is garbage, fake burgers is garbage. I mean, if you look in the ingredient list of fake chicken or fake meat, it's a mile long. You're
Mm-hmm.
better off eating grass-fed beef than you are the fake meat, in my opinion. And so, but again, with breast cancer specific, you do have to reduce your red meat intake. Definitely, I would get rid of processed meat, bacon, deli meat, any of that is just not good.
Charcuterie boards. Yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
know, not
Yeah.
good. Well, dairy is in question too. So
Right.
I don't really do dairy with breast. It's just if you read it, you'll be like, okay,
I
yeah,
know.
no.
I
And
know.
did
No, I
actually
did
speaking, have you seen the new uh doc or the docu-series on Netflix called The Twin Experiment?
not yet, but I've heard
It's
all
so
about
good.
it. Yeah,
It's
I
so
heard it's
good.
really good. Yeah.
It is really good. And I honestly didn't know going into it which diet they were going to say was best.
Hmm.
So anyway, I really think like you have to look at eating whole food, plant-based fruits and vegetables and whole grains. And I eat soy. There was all this controversy about soy, and that is so wrong. I mean, that is
Hmm.
so wrong. Soy is actually really good for people with breast cancer. You want to make sure it's sourced properly. I mean, there's
Hmm.
the soy isolates, which is garbage. You want to make sure you get non-GMO,
Hmm.
sourced properly, organic soy. And like my soy milk is literally soybeans, organic soybeans and water. Like that's it. Just
Hmm.
look at your ingredients. Like after a diagnosis, you should look at everything. And if there's something on there that you are questioning, don't have it.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Well, and I
that's kind of
think,
how that,
yeah, and I think just with that diet too, I think back when you mentioned that, I think back to my mother, who when she was in high school, they were from Flint, Lapeer area in Michigan,
yeah.
and
Hmm.
my grandfather decided to buy a farm, an 80-acre farm. So they moved out to the farm, and then he raised cattle and he sold the cattle, and they ate off. I mean, they had, they'd send Bessie to town, if you will, and they would have grass-fed, farm-raised beef, you know but they ate, it was the meat and the potatoes and the vegetables. I mean, we grew up not eating, um, except when times were a little tough. We ate some TV dinners and things like that and chicken pot pies, but we ate just kind of ate off the fat of the land, if you will, right? Just
Yeah.
kind of, and
Right.
I think even if people looked at that and said, like, stop eating out or stop eating fast food and like learn to prepare your own food and
Yes.
like have it not come from a box and those kind of things, again, that can be like less overwhelming than, oh my God, I have to be plant-based. But like just
Correct.
trying to keep some of that stuff out and be a little bit more basic,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know.
if you literally, like you said, cut out fast food and you cut out overly processed food, like, and some people will say, oh, well, I'm vegan. And there can be a lot of unhealthy vegans
Hmm.
because they're eating the stuff that comes in. Just because a package says it's vegan or gluten-free does not mean it's good for, good for you.
Right.
And what's so frustrating too is I think some people go to Whole Foods and they just assume like, oh, well, I'm at Whole Foods, like everything here is healthy. And no, it's not. It's
Hmm.
not.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, definitely look into your nutrition and diet and what maybe changes because all these changes, and again, I slowly over time, you don't have to do
Hmm.
everything overnight, but what these changes do is they empower you
Hmm.
and it gives you a sense of control and you feel like you're doing something about it. So this minimizes fear. I
Hmm.
feel like the women that I talk to that have the most fear are the ones that aren't making changes because this happened in your body. Why would you want to go back to doing the exact same thing you were doing prior to it? You
Hmm.
want to make it, you want to live in a different environment than you did when you got this cancer,
That created the
right?
cancer. Right.
That created the cancer, right?
Hmm.
The other thing I really recommend is surrounding yourself with people who get it. Maybe that's like seeing somebody a step ahead of you. That's what helped me. Just because it's like you can tell somebody else who's never gone through a diagnosis what you're going through. It's just different when you can
Hmm.
talk to somebody who truly gets it. Hence why I created my community. Forgiveness, I think, is a huge piece to it. And I think we hold on to anger, we hold on to somebody who wronged us, and all that does is that keeps us unhealthy. There
Hmm.
might be shame, there might be just things that we're holding on to that need to be released
Hmm.
and worked through because it's just not good for you. Like I remember at one point I was reading, I'm sure you know Chris beat cancer.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I actually had him on my podcast one time. but I was reading about forgiveness with something he had written, and I took his advice. I wrote down all the people that I felt that I was still holding on to, and I wrote about it. I forgave them. I threw it away. Gave it to
Hmm.
God. Like bless and release. Like we should not be holding on to any anger against anybody else. It's just not good for us.
I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, if you again have read any Louise Hay, who's
Oh,
all,
love Louise Hay.
I mean,
Yes.
I pulled out that book when I got my diagnosis and looked up cancer, and it was about forgiveness or lack of
Yes.
forgiveness and resentment. And it was like a big, you know, it was a big, not a kick in the face, but it was just a big awareness for me. And
Yeah.
I also like, as my husband would say, well, you have to forgive your mom and let that go. And I was like, I think I did that with my mom. My mom passed 3 years ago in April, and that's a different story for a different day. Um, but what I had to get real about is my husband.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't talked much about it. I've talked about my daughter's struggle and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to get real about the stuff that I've held on. I love my husband. He just turned 61 yesterday. We celebrated that. But I've been married to him for 30 years, and there's been some rough spots. And I
Mm-hmm.
know that I've held on to a lot of that. And I've been
Mm-hmm.
waiting for apologies from him for a very long time. And they won't come, right? But I have to, and I can't change him. And I want people to hear that. Like we can't change anybody.
Right.
But all we can do is, again, work on ourselves and change ourselves or whatever. But we can also forgive. That I can feel it in my body just talking about it. That is a challenge for me. And I continue to work on it. And I'm working on the Hoponobo. I can't say it. That's Hoponobo prayer,
No,
that
what's
one.
that one? No,
It's oh, I used to have the thing, but
send it to me.
yeah, I will. It's a Hawaiian prayer, and it's
Oh,
very simple. And it's like say for instance, I said I started to do it when I lay in the sauna.
okay.
And so I lay quietly, I close my eyes, and I think about one person.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, I love you. Please forgive me. I'm sorry. Thank you. And you can say it once, or you can keep saying it. And the really cool thing is what happens is you say, Tom, I forgive you. Or I love you, Tom. Please forgive me. And like just say it slowly because you say, please forgive me. And then all of a sudden you'll think, because I did this or this, you do those, it's like
Yeah.
things come up and you can get quite emotional or you can just kind of breeze on through it. But it's a way for you to think about that person, hold the space for them, and just go through those sayings. If I love you, please forgive me, thank you, or I love you, thank you. Um, no, I'm
That's
sorry.
so good.
And I mean,
I love,
you can look that up. There's stories. There's somebody that I mean, there's all kinds of stories that people did that,
yeah.
and it changes the energy, right? And it releases
Yeah.
it from us. And I hear Chris talk about that all the time with Chris Beats Cancer. And
Yeah.
I have his little devotional book and
Oh,
his
isn't that devotional book the best?
it's so lovely. Somebody just
Every
sent it
more.
to me. Yeah, I read it it's in my little space in my front room. I read
Yeah.
it every morning.
Yep. That's what I did too during my diet when I was in the beginning. And I actually started it over when I finished it because I didn't want it to be done.
Yeah, yeah. But the forgiveness is just so big. And that's just it's a lovely way. I like what you said too, is just writing those things down and then
Yeah.
burn it or give it away or tear it up or whatever.
Right.
Just
I think sometimes journaling is so powerful. It's been like you can't it's not even legible form. Like when I write it down, I'm just kind
right.
of writing but it just feels so good getting it out.
Hmm.
But yeah, and I think the other few that I have that I wrote down is like slowing down, and I kind of talked about that. Just
Hmm.
take time to make informed decisions on everything because it's not just like you get this diagnosis and you go through those initial things and then you're done. There's so much more. Like I'm still trying to figure out some things and I'm just not reacting. I'm taking my time with it. Getting your sleep right. I
Hmm.
think we talked about that briefly. It's really important. And I know that's really frustrating when you're in the thick of it and you just got your diagnosis or maybe thrown into menopause and you're like, I can't sleep. It'll eventually come, but you have to work at it. And
Hmm.
then I think that you have to fully 100% believe that you can heal.
Hmm.
Your belief is so powerful.
Hmm. Yeah, that was my post today. You've got to believe that. And it's probably because I saw that from Chris Work saying that
Mhm.
too. But it's true. You have to believe that you can be well.
Mm-hmm.
There's many people that I work with in my business, perhaps you, that give you everything that hasn't worked and how this couldn't work. Your suggestion that you're making to them today, it couldn't work. It couldn't work. Like because they don't believe, that
Yeah.
they could be well, or they could lose weight, or they could sleep well, or they could have less anxiety. They don't believe it. And some people say, yeah, I know, but it's easy for you. I'm like, it's not easy. It's not easy to get up and say, I have cancer and I am healing. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
not easy to say I'm in a toxic relationship and I'm going to get divorced. I mean, it's not easy. None of this stuff is easy,
No.
but it's necessary to
Yeah.
really, it's necessary. If
Yeah.
we want to move into what you said, being in a different state than what created cancer in the
Yeah.
first place.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's and like you said, you created a beautiful community. Again, I love that I found you because again, I'm so inspired by you. I must say that because you really have created something that I feel like perhaps I could do too, because
You
I've
can.
created a community of support with my podcast for people that have struggled with addictions. I've created a community of wellness for the last 25 years. And I'm like, I think this is my next
Yeah.
iteration of that, if you will. Like whatever you put, I saw something of you. I'm like, wow, see, that's what I want to do too. So I feel like I want the message to be, and hopefully, people hear like when things come your way, when we have challenges, it's how we choose to deal with it, but look at it
Yeah.
as a way that we can help better ourselves, but we can also, there's so many other people that need to hear your story so that we can help them
Yeah,
as
when
well.
your story becomes your purpose, it's really a beautiful thing. Not that you wanted to go through it, but like I look at my life now and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so much better. Like I'm so much happier. I feel calm. Like I didn't even know these feelings before because I never let myself quiet down enough.
Hmm.
And it's just empowering. So yeah, I can now say, and it took me a while to say it, but I can now say that I look at cancer as a blessing. My husband
Hmm.
has always said it. And I was like, it is not, the first year. But now I can say that. Like it is, it's it's been a thing.
Hmm.
The other thing I was going to say when you were talking about forgiveness too, it's like, yeah, like forgiveness, we may not even realize, like when you brought up your husband, I was even thinking about Darren, and not that he can help any of it, but my world is so different. It's not a normal marriage anymore. It's, we've gone into these different roles of caretaker, patient, and vice versa. But yeah, it's crazy
Hmm.
how you've got to process all the emotions that are coming up and not be like angry so often. Like I do feel like there's moments where you just get annoyed like with your spouse or
Hmm.
significant other, but we do get through things so much quicker. And that's
Hmm.
another thing you learn from a diagnosis. But
Hmm. Well, and I think it's what I've been going through too, is that feeling like something will come up
yeah.
and I start to like I'm noticing it more. I'm like, wow. And like you said, why am I feeling this way? I mean, we went through something a couple of weeks ago that I was really upset about a choice that my husband had made. And when he came home and I talked about it, like I was in this state, and I think it's because of feeling all this. I was just not in a state of like, why the heck, blah, 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 like attacking him, but just saying, listen, I feel betrayed. I feel
Hmm.
so hurt by this. And it was a different way of me sharing with him. But you know what I also found is that he all of a sudden was vulnerable, which he's not
Yeah.
usually vulnerable when I'm like attacking him about like, what the hell did you do? And so it like things changed in me, but then I saw that his response to me was different. I didn't
Yeah.
make the whole, like what happened was like still, yucky, but it was that, again, the way that we can show up
Yeah.
differently and feel
Yeah.
our feelings.
And I think too, with the work, like my work has evolved over the years. Like I'm always kind of doing something, it started with energy healing, then I incorporated acupuncture, and now those have slowed down a little bit, but I'm doing more tapping. And like this tapping, I think really brings a lot out too. So I really think it's like finding something that you're working through and processing things. Like you said, your response, you weren't expecting how you responded, but when we're in this emotional state, we've had this diagnosis, like, and you're working through things, different things come up in different
Hmm.
ways.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. Well, and in giving yourself grace that it may be tapping today and it might be energy work tomorrow and it might be
yeah,
going on a retreat the next
yeah,
year or whatever. It's going to be this ongoing, and give yourself enough grace to know that it doesn't have to be these 5 things now, and now I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. It's going to change. And
oh,
it's
yeah.
okay to change, and it's okay to follow that intuition that we all have inside of us, that little sixth sense or the Holy Spirit or whatever you choose to call it.
Hmm.
There is something, if we slow down enough to say, how do I feel about this? What should
Hmm.
I do? Should I do this or not? There's some, there's a lot of power in
A
that intuition.
lot of power. Have you read the book Radical Remission?
Not yet. It's on my
You'll want
list.
to. There's actually it's really good. It gives you so much hope. And we just actually, in my community, we're doing like a little radical remission project, and there's a docu-series on it too. And it was on intuition, like what this book is for those that are listening. It's like the nine, is it nine or 10, or the 10 principles that all of these people who survived against all odds, they had all these 10 factors involved in their
Hmm.
healing, and one of them was intuition,
Hmm.
like being able to go within and listen to your body. And what is it telling you? Like all of
Yeah.
those things.
Yeah. Yeah. That is definitely on my list. There's another one that's upstairs and I can't remember the name of it, but it made me think of you as we wrap this up with your husband and open, like being awake brain surgery.
Mm-hmm.
It's about a gentleman who's a pastor. Have you read that
Mm.
book?
Mm-mm.
I'll tell you about that. I'll send it to you too after this. There's a pastor that was diagnosed, and same thing. He had to be, it was like wrapped around something. He had to be awake during this. And he ended up then afterwards training for a triathlon or a Ironman triathlon. I
Wow.
mean, I'm about 3/4 of the way through, but it's amazing.
Oh,
Amazing
I want to get
story.
that book. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
amazing to think that Darren's done this twice. And it
Mm.
was like 10-hour-long surgeries, and he was awake for 3 hours of it.
I mean, crazy. I mean, I'm a
Right?
nurse, but like thinking about that, that's just
I know.
crazy.
I
Um,
know.
so I know, Jen, we could talk for a long time, but
Yeah.
let's wrap it up here because it is close to the end of the day for both of us. But I'm so grateful for you and for what you've shared. Um, I want people to know where they can find you. Again, I'll put
Yeah.
all of this in the show notes. So just share about your podcast, your community, your
Yep.
website, those type of things if people want to be in touch with you.
Sure. My website is jendelvaux.com, and you'll have that in the show notes with the
Hmm.
spelling. My community is called Reset and Rise. It's for women that have gone through a breast cancer diagnosis. It's not one of those sad, scary groups on Facebook. It has tools and resources, and we do weekly calls. So there's that. I have my book, Not Today Cancer, a non-typical survival guide for the girl who wants to thrive, not just survive. And that's a lighter book. So, a lot of these books that we're getting are so sciency, and this is
Hmm.
like has a little bit of my journal excerpts in it, and just some tools, kind of
Hmm.
the tools that we've talked about, the changes that you can make. And then my podcast is Not Today Cancer.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is a really good one. So, um, any last, um, any last things that you want to share just
I
as we
mean,
finish up today?
for anybody that's just newly diagnosed, if they're listening, that you will get through this. And I know it's scary in the moment, but there's so many things you can do, and it can change you, and it can even make you better, and you can come out of it stronger. So, but yeah, just go slow, little things over time, making changes and just taking care of yourself and living your life. Like, have
Hmm.
fun.
Yeah.
We're on this earth for just having this human experience. It's supposed to be joyful and loving and fun, and I think we need a lot more of that. So schedule that into your day. Schedule some time to decompress. Like, we want this to-do list to do all day long, but just relax.
Hmm.
Have some
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. I agree. And again, just great tips. My word last year was focus. It's still up on my board there. I need to change it.
Ah,
But I also have told people like last year I was working on focusing because I get a little distracted and I want to do all the things.
yeah.
And then I realized in September and October that I really needed to focus on me and focus on clearing things out. And just what you said, that's what I'm working on, is because it was tough for me to say, oh, well, I'm not going to do that because I'm the doer, right? I get shit done and you just do it. But I had to realize that I didn't have enough space in between. Okay, I can choose this, but then I need to choose some time for me, be it on the rebounder, which is what I did before, rebounded and then ate, had some water and came, we have to schedule that time in. We have to schedule the joy in. And I hope people heard that, because for me, I turned 60 and now I'm looking at my next chapter of my life way differently than I did, 4 months ago. So I love what you said.
It's only been 4 months.
Yeah. Has it been 4 months? Right? I mean, October 13th.
Yeah.
November,
That's
December.
crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, I feel like a different person, and all for the better. So thank you for being here. I really, really appreciate it. And please continue to come back and listen to my podcast, share this with others that may want the hope, and listen for more of these great episodes in the future.
Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Hey there, ready to live a more joyful life? Considering connecting with someone who can help you? If so, I'd like to be that person. I offer a free consultation where we determine where the chaos is in your life and how you can learn to bring more joy each and every day. Visit my website, moyragorski.com, or simply email me, moyra@moyragorski.com, with more joy in the subject line. I look forward to connecting, and I'm here to say there will always be some chaos, which requires a little juggling, but you can find joy and live your life intentionally filled with that joy. Let me help you on your journey to joy. And that's joy, the journey of you.